Hi everybody, today I'm going to be talking about the unspoken downsides of supplements and do you actually even need supplements to heal your gut? So everywhere you look there seems to be another recommendation on a supplement you need. Probiotics for your gut microbiome, TUDCA to make sure your bile is flowing properly and you're not getting pale greasy stools, L-glutamine and collagen to make sure you're healing your gut lining, probiotics for your gut microbiome, and just I could go on and on. There's always things, a multivitamin just to make sure you're getting enough, and vitamin D because everyone's deficient in vitamin D, and it just becomes a lot. And if you take everyone's advice on what supplements to get, pretty soon you're going to have 15 plus supplements if you don't already, and you're going to be spending hundreds of dollars every single month to keep up with your supplements. Today I'm going to be sharing the rarely spoken of side effects of actually taking supplements, because a lot of them have side effects that are not very good, especially when you take a bunch of them together, but I'll get into that in a second. I'm going to talk about how to tell if a supplement is actually going to be a good fit for you or not, and then at the end I will share my few favorite supplements that I think are the best. But I also want to reiterate, you don't have to take any supplements at all. I didn't take a single supplement to heal my gut issues, and I healed my chronic constipation, IBS, my bloating, my gas, my abdominal pain, food sensitivities, all of that with diet and no supplements at all. And to this day, the only one I take is cod liver oil, but that's basically a food. I feel like it's just oil from the liver of a cod. So anyway, you do not have to take any supplements to heal, but I will tell you a few that I like. So if you don't know me already, my name is Kaylee. I'm a certified nutritionist and gut health specialist, and I love helping people to heal their chronic gut issues at the root using the principles of ancestral nutrition as well as some other holistic health principles. The first downside is supplements can cause nutrient deficiencies. Now, this is a lot to take in at first. You take a supplement so that you get your nutrients in, right? And you don't miss out on any. But the thing is that nutrients work together synergistically. And you need certain nutrients to work with other nutrients to fulfill their functions. And on top of this, nutrients compete for absorption in your body. So if you zoom into your gut lining and you look at your small intestine where your nutrients are being absorbed, your food is broken down. It's broken down all small. You get the vitamins and minerals coming out. Now they're at your gut lining like wall, and there's these little channels that they have to go through to get into your body. But the thing is that they compete and they share channels. So copper and zinc, for example, share a channel to get into your body, or iron and calcium share a little channel to get into your body. And there's many of them, but still, so they have to share with others. So if you overdo a nutrient, you can actually cause a deficiency. So if you're taking an iron supplement and flooding your body with all this iron can kind of hog and take up all of the binding sites it shares with other nutrients, and you can end up with a calcium deficiency even if you're taking a calcium supplement or eating calcium in your diet if you have that much more iron. Same with copper and zinc. If you are like taking a zinc supplement and you're not really conscious of how much copper you're getting, you could be taking so much zinc that it's hogging all those sites, and then you get a copper deficiency secondhand. So more is not better. You don't want to blindly supplement with more of a certain nutrient because it can hog those binding sites, prevent other nutrients from ever getting into your bloodstream and being able to be used by the body, and cause these secondhand deficiencies. So this is a huge thing that you want to take away here. Also, they do work synergistically together too. So sometimes people will have low ferritin or low iron and they'll just take an iron supplement, and we already learned that can cause deficiencies elsewhere. But the thing is, it might not even help your iron, or it might not help your ferritin levels and the functions that iron need to fulfill in your body, because iron needs things like vitamin A to convert copper, which it also needs, into its active form, and then copper loads iron into these transferrin molecules that transport it around and help it do its job. So that's why transferrin is a very common blood test marker to see how much iron you have. But the problem is if you have low transferrin, most people will tell you just eat more iron or take an iron supplement, and they won't tell you about the vitamin A and the copper role in that. And vitamin C even helps iron get absorbed. So all of these nutrients work together synergistically. They compete with each other, they help each other, and everything really needs to be in a proper balance. And supplements can really throw this off, because a supplement can be so much of a concentrated nutrient that you wouldn't get that much in your diet normally, so it can cause a lot of imbalances. Food, on the other hand, is really good at pairing nutrients together that help each other and not overdoing any. So if you eat liver, for example, this has vitamin A, copper, and iron all in it to help you be able to, actually use the iron in your body. Like I said, vitamin A converts copper into its active form, which loads iron onto the transferrin molecule. But if you look at liver, it's not like ridiculously high in iron. It's pretty high in vitamin A, but it's not crazy on these, and it actually helps to balance you. It has copper, which copper can be a little bit of a hard one for some people to get in their diet. It has copper where the regular muscle meats have a lot more zinc, so that kind of helps to balance things out. So food is really good at balancing this. Nose to tail is even better. If you think about it, our ancestors would hunt an animal and they'd eat as much of the animal as possible. And that actually really balances it out in yourself. And if you also think about it, if you're eating kind of those same things that are part of you, so if you're eating muscles to help your muscles, if you're eating organs to help your organs, and you're eating the connective tissue to help your connective tissue, that also really helps you to get the right balance of nutrients in your diet. Another thing that can happen with supplements causing nutrient deficiencies is a multivitamin. People are often told just take a multivitamin just in case, to make sure you're getting enough. The same thing can happen in pregnancy with a prenatal. It's like a just in case to make sure you're getting enough. But the thing is, those are not tailored to you specifically and your diet. So you might already be getting like enough phosphorus, for example. That's a really easy one to get enough of. And then there might be more in your multivitamin that's like pushing you over the edge, especially because in a lot of supplements, when you look at the label, they actually have a ton of the nutrient in them that's far above the recommended amount that you get every day. So if you have a supplement that's like, that has 300 times the amount of, zinc that you need in a day, and you're already eating zinc in your diet too, it can really throw things off. So I'm really not a fan of multivitamins. And I'm also not a fan of just blindly supplementing with things without really understanding what your nutritional needs are, because it can cause these deficiencies. So the second downside is many supplements are very poor quality. So this is going to go in a different direction than the first one. A lot of supplements will actually be full of baby powder or chalk to just fill it up a bit more, and the rest of it is the nutrients. So sometimes you're not even really getting that much help from one. They'll also use cheaper forms that are cheaper to make of the nutrients, which are often less bioavailable. So for example, a lot of supplements will put folic acid in instead of folate. This is vitamin B9. But the thing is, folic acid is a lot harder to convert into folate, and a lot of people have the MTHFR gene, which makes it so that they can't or can barely make this conversion at all. So it's really not helping them at all, and now it's just an extra thing that their liver has to deal with, this extra folic acid they can't do anything with. So it's kind of creating a chore instead of offering a solution. You'll find this with a lot of things. Vitamin A often is put as carotenes, like beta carotene, in a supplement instead of retinol vitamin A, which is the form you really need. You might find D2 or K1 instead of, you really need D3 and K2 are going to be the animal forms, the forms you're able to use. So they often put cheaper forms in here. They can put a lot of stuff in there, especially those multivitamins, because there's so many different ones in there, they'll shortcut a lot. So it's also possible that your supplement is giving you like a false sense of security that you're getting something in that's actually not working for your body. So maybe you noticed that you were low in folate, so you started taking a supplement, but it's folic acid and you're not actually getting very much from it, and you have this false sense of like, oh, I'm getting enough folate. What you actually needed to do was eat more liver and egg yolks, and then you get enough folate in. So just realize that a lot of supplements are pretty poor quality. They'll be made of synthetic nutrients instead of the natural form, which your body doesn't always absorb and utilize so much. So both of those can be an issue. You know, sometimes it is a fine form and you are getting a lot, and then it's too much and it's causing these secondhand deficiencies, or sometimes it's just a really poor quality supplement. Okay, so the third downside is some supplements contain toxins. So collagen is a huge one here, because your connective tissue, both animals and humans, will tend to store toxins like glyphosate, which is also called Roundup, or heavy metals. So if you're getting collagen but it's not from a good source, you could actually end up getting glyphosate and heavy metals, which are very, very not good for you, in your collagen supplement. So that is a problem. Fish oils are very often rancid. Once you take the oil out of the fish, it's a lot more fragile. And if it's sitting on the shelf for a long time and being exposed to heat and light, it just often goes rancid. So that's going to be the same kind of issues you run into with seed oils. So those are rarely a good choice. However, there are some companies that are super, super intentional about how they get their oil and how they prevent this from happening. So there are a few exceptions, but don't get a fish oil unless you know it's like a really good company. So then another one is synthetic iron is just terrible for you. It's been linked to cancer and a lot of issues in a lot of chronic illnesses. So you really don't want to be taking a synthetic iron supplement. If you're super duper struggling with iron, spleen is a much better choice. Liver is great, like I said, but if you're just super duper duper struggling with iron, spleen is like the richest source of iron I know of, and it's going to be a much better choice. And you can get organ supplements that have that in there already, because it's probably hard to find spleen at the grocery store. So there are better options. Do not go for synthetic iron. It's really not good for you. And then I will also notice that sometimes clients will react to supplements. I had a client, Svetlana, who I told her, like, you don't actually need to take these supplements. So she decided to get off the supplements, and she was very intentional with her diet. I went over it with her, made sure she was getting all her nutrients in, and she felt so much better and just started to make all this progress when cutting out her supplements and working on her diet and just healing in that way. Like before, she had been to all these naturopaths and got prescribed all these supplements, and she was actually reacting to the supplements. So just, that's another thing that indicates that there are sometimes toxins and things that aren't good for you in supplements if you actually end up reacting to them and not tolerating them well. So that brings me to the fourth downside, which is most just completely pale in comparison to food, yet are far more expensive. I would way rather you spend a little bit more on food to get a little bit better quality and then just not get supplements than buy a bunch of supplements and be like, I can barely afford food or my bills or whatever, or saving for some goal that you have. So it's much better to invest in quality food than a bunch of supplements. So one example is probiotics just are not as good as homemade ferments, and homemade ferments are cheap to make. All you need is like jars, veggies, water, and salt. That's it. You can add a little more spices if you want, but they're so good for you. And the ones at the store are a little expensive, but like if you make it from scratch, that is amazing. And probiotics just do not have as strong and good of a culture as the homemade ferments do. And collagen powders just cannot compare to homemade bone broths and meat stocks made from really good collagen rich cuts of meat. Chicken feet is my favorite, where you can get this really jiggly wiggly collagen rich broth that is so much better for you and your joints, and it's more reliable. You can see the actual company that it's coming from. I like to get the Mary's chicken feet, and it's a good company, so that feels really good to me. And you can just control a lot more. And like I was saying before, so many collagen powders are just, they're made from like hides and hoofs because it's cheaper, but that's not as collagen rich. It's not as helpful for you. They'll have heavy metals in them. It's not as good. And another thing is, this drives me crazy when I'm in the grocery store, but so many things are marketed to you as like, oh my God, look at this nutrient, or this thing does all these things for you and you need this, so you need this supplement. And it's literally something that you're already getting in your food. Like, yes, these nutrients are amazing and they're so helpful, but so many of them are just so easy to get in your diet. So it drives me crazy when I see this. Like, if you've seen NAC, like NAC, and heard about like how great it is for you, it's literally the amino acid cysteine, and it's in so much food. And creatine too. Creatine is such a like, oh my God, you need creatine. It's good for this. It's good for your workout performance, this and that and that. Like, creatine is in meat, and the amino acids to make creatine are in meat. If you eat enough meat, you get enough creatine. Like, it's so hard not to get enough creatine in your diet, and too much can actually cause problems, especially with your kidneys, and like eliminating it, the excess. It's crazy how supplements will market it like there's this new nutrient to add that has all these benefits when it's already in foods that you're eating. So be wary of that. Really learn what foods the nutrient is actually present in, because you might already be getting plenty. So real food just balances everything so much better in your body, and it doesn't lead you to overdo a nutrient or even overdose as easily. So that brings me to vitamin A, which is a very important nutrient that many people don't get enough of, but you can have too much. So with the fat-soluble nutrients, vitamins A, D, E, and K, they're stored in your fat, so they can be stored for like 6 months in your body. So what you're having like accumulates over time, and you can have too much of these. Other nutrients are water soluble and they don't store quite as much, so you do need to get them more frequently, and they're harder to overdo. But if you have too much vitamin A build up in your body, that actually can cause a lot of side effects and isn't good for you. So it's something you have to be careful of when you're eating liver and cod liver oil, especially, to just not overdo. For that, I just recommend stay in that 3 to 6 ounces of fresh liver a week category. And then what I do is I have 2 milliliters of cod liver oil a day, and I have 2 tablespoons of my liver heart pate a day. So that ends up being about like 3.5-ish ounces a week. So just stick around there. I also eat eggs and hard cheeses and dairy and butter and things that are high in vitamin A too, but that's how I keep mine safe. I do keep the liver on a little bit of the lower end to accommodate for the other high vitamin A foods that I have. But synthetic vitamin A is very easy to overdo, and it's led to something that's really not good. And that is basically people warning pregnant women of warning is not bad, but people advising pregnant women to avoid liver because it's high in vitamin A, because there are studies about too much vitamin A being not good for pregnant women. However, they use synthetic vitamin A in the studies, so that's not great. Now, I still agree that too much isn't good for you, but the problem is Lily Nichols, who wrote Real Food for Pregnancy, has this quote about how like 70% of women who don't eat liver are deficient in vitamin A, and vitamin A is needed to form your baby's heart and organs and so many other things. So if you don't get enough vitamin A and you're not getting liver, it's really hard to get enough vitamin A. That's not good. So anyway, that's just a whole little thing. So basically what I'm saying here is that the synthetic nutrients can cause more problems than the ones that are actually in their natural form, and it's easier to overdose and have problems like that. And they're just a reminder to find your balance. Again, you need enough vitamin A to support all the functions in your body. You need it to build a healthy baby if you're pregnant, but you don't want to go overboard. You don't want to have too much. So let's talk about which supplements are good choices, because while I have a lot of beefs with supplements, I am not completely anti-supplement either. I don't like to see when people have like 15 to 20 supplements that is actually throwing a bunch of stuff off in their body when they could just get it with their diet. But anyway, so a good supplement would be one that intentionally fills a gap in your diet. So I'll use myself for an example here. I have a little bit of a harder time getting as much omega-3 in my diet because I don't eat a lot of seafood. My fiance doesn't like seafood, and I can kind of go either way. I made this fish head soup, I don't know, I guess it's been several months ago, and it was so bad that it kind of like extra turned me off from seafood. It did not turn out good. I hadn't made something like awful in years, and it was awful. But anyway, so I've been a little turned off from seafood since then, but I do like it sometimes, so I'm open to seafood, but like a little picky with it. But anyway, we don't really eat much seafood at all at my house. And if you don't eat seafood, but you're like really good about tons of grass-fed everything, animal-wise, if like everything's grass-fed, that can kind of make up for it, omega-3 wise, but we don't. We get a mix of grass-fed and not grass-fed for our meat and dairy and that kind of stuff. So because it's a mix, I feel like I'm not getting quite enough omega-3, so that's one of the reasons that I take the cod liver oil. Also, vitamin E is a really weird nutrient, and it's super random, and I just don't quite eat as many high vitamin E foods, so I get a little extra vitamin E from the cod liver oil. And then it also has vitamin D, which I do not get quite enough time in the sun to feel that I am confidently getting enough vitamin D. So I like to get a little bit from my diet, so that's where I get it for the cod liver oil. It also has vitamin A, but for me, I actually have to make sure that I keep it low enough so I don't overdo it, since I am getting it from the liver as well. But anyway, so that fills some gaps, and I actually have I have a document that is good sources of nutrients, where I have the best sources of each nutrient, all the vitamins and minerals written down, and the percentages of the daily recommended amount that you eat next to all of them per 100 grams of the food. So I go over that frequently for myself, and I use that for my clients as well. And I give it to all of my clients so you can see like where you're getting. So I go over this for myself, and I saw those gaps, and that cod liver oil would fix that. So that is why I did that. I use a specific one that I really like that's Green Pastures. It's fermented as well. It's recommended by the Weston A. Price Foundation. It's in a dark glass bottle to prevent oxidation, and they just use really good practices to prevent any oxidation of that cod liver oil. I keep it in the fridge to even further prevent it from oxidating. So this is a really good one. And the other thing I like is they extract it like cold and preserve the naturally occurring vitamin A and D in it. A lot of cod liver oil companies will actually like damage the nutrients in the extraction process with heats and stuff, and then they'll add synthetic nutrients back in, which I do not want. So they don't do that. So I like that one a lot. I actually have an affiliate code for that, so I'll link it down below with my discount code. It's Kaylee25, and you get 10% off if you do want to try it. You do not have to try it at all, but if you are interested, I will leave that down below. So what I was saying is good supplements are ones that intentionally fill a gap in your diet. They're filling in for a nutrient you know you're not getting enough of. Now, I don't have to take that. I could eat more seafood and get outside more often, and that would fill that gap as well. Or I could eat like all or more grass-fed meat and dairy, and that would probably fill that gap as well. So you can do a nutrient analysis like I was talking about that I do for myself and my clients to analyze your diet and find your shortcomings. So that's really, really good idea. You can do a blood test if you want as well. I've done a few of those in the past that can help you to see if you're overdoing anything or underdoing anything and help you adjust accordingly. If you're very, very low on something in your blood test, that can be a reason to increase foods that are rich in that nutrient, or if you really want a supplement. And then whole food supplements are best. So supplements that come from a food. So I recommend the cod liver oil. I recommend organ supplements. Oyster pills can be really good as well, which is All of these are the real food ground up and put into a capsule. I like these better because it's not like an isolated nutrient you're taking. It's a combination that comes from a food that you would normally eat. So when liver is in a pill, it can be really easy to just get a bunch in, but more isn't necessarily better. So make sure you're being mindful of that and choosing the right amount. Again, I recommend about 3 to 6 ounces a week of fresh organs. So check to see how much of that is in your supplements and make sure to account for that. Anyway, if you want to learn how to get liver and organ meats in your diet, I have a video that goes over 6 different ways on how to do that. My personal favorite is liver heart pate, but if you want to see how to get it in your diet, then I will link that video up above and down below. And if you're just like, that's not for me, I just want the supplement form, my favorite company is Heart and Soil, so I will link for them down below if you want to check it out. I also have an affiliate code, so if you use the code HeartToKitchen10, you'll get 10% off. So then another option is there's a principle in ancestral nutrition called like heals like, and it means that whatever you're eating is good for the corresponding part in you. So muscle is good for your muscle, liver is good for your liver, thyroid is good for your thyroid, intestines good for your intestines, and so on. So if you have an issue with a specific organ or part of your body, it can be helpful to eat the animal version of that. If you can get it in the store, great, and if not, then you can also you can get the supplement version as well. That can be really helpful for things like thyroid or intestines that might be harder to come across. So then herbs can be a good option too. It just depends. Same thing with the vitamins and other supplements. Just don't blindly supplement with herbs. Make sure you understand what effects they have, because some are very intense, and like, you know, oregano oil can have its place if you absolutely need something antimicrobial, but you do not want to be taking that regularly because it really is messing with your microbiome, and it's not an ideal thing to have. So things that can seem like, oh, it's just a plant, it's natural, can have an intense effect. So be mindful of that, but herbs can certainly be great. Herbal teas is a really great subtle way to affect your body in a positive way. I also like binders for detoxing, but you really want to pick a good one. I like zeolite, or like a carbon-based binder, like Cellcore has a really good biotoxin binder. But especially if you're dealing with heavy metals, make sure it's a full chelator, so it actually binds, it draws out the heavy metal, binds to it, and takes it all the way through to getting out. Because things like cilantro and I think like spirulina, chlorella, those type of things aren't as good for heavy metals. They can be beneficial for other toxins, but it's another thing that make sure you understand what you're doing and don't do it blindly, because certain binders are better than others for certain situations. So anyway, I am a fan of the zeolite and the Cellcore's biotoxin binder, though. I think both of those are good options. So I think that can be good when you're detoxing, or when you have a lot of toxin overload and that's a part of your issues you're working through. I just ordered the zeolite to use for a little 2-week cleanse. I like to do that once a year just to really be thorough and make sure I'm getting rid of any toxins that might have stored over the past year. But yeah, so that can be a great option. That's also something you could use short term. You don't need to use it long term. And then everyone has different circumstances. You know, magnesium can be really helpful for somebody that is not getting enough, or is like has insomnia or constipation. But you know, if you have it in your diet, that also fixes it. But if you're struggling to get it in your diet, you could get it in a supplement. Or HCl, so that's stomach acid, can be really helpful for people with low stomach acid, but not if you have gastritis. That's going to burn. You need to heal the stomach inflammation first. But anyway, like that can be helpful, but it's not something you take long term. It's just a part you take for the healing process. Nobody should be on HCl and pepsin and digestive enzymes and things like that and TUDCA for like long term. It's just a thing to help get the ball rolling while you fix the root cause, and then you don't need it anymore and everything's functioning well. So anyway, there's a lot of different things. The big takeaway is you can usually get everything you need from food, but if there's little gaps that you have and need help with, supplements can play a role here. There are supplements. They are supplementing your diet. It's in addition to your diet and lifestyle. It is not a replacement for it. So let's talk about how to get all your nutrients in. I really recommend you eat nose to tail, so eat as much of the animal as possible and mimic the portions of the animal. So a really good example of this is if you buy a whole chicken, eat all the meat, eat the organs that come with it, and then save the bones and make broth with the bones. That would be a really well-balanced way to get your nutrients in. Seasonal fruits and veggies is really helpful too. Follow your healthy cravings. So if you're craving junk food, that's not what I'm talking about. But if you're like, steak sounds really good tonight, or strawberries sound really good right now, usually it's your body telling you you need that and you need a nutrient in it. This actually happens a lot with pregnant women. Those intense food cravings, it's been theorized that is a nutrient you need and your baby needs. So the craving is to make sure you get that nutrient in, and it'll help you be healthier and your baby be healthier. But anyway, so follow those cravings. Again, just don't shoot in the dark. Make sure you're including a supplement intentionally, that you're going over your nutrient intake, and that you actually understand what you're getting in and that you're getting enough in. You can take a blood test if you want, but just don't blindly add supplements in, because they actually can cause problems. If you want to learn how I get all my nutrients in with my diet without taking any supplements, unless you count cod liver oil as a supplement, then I will link that video on the screen in just a second. In that, I go over the same process I do for myself and my clients, but I'm showing you like which foods I'm eating daily or near daily for every single vitamin and mineral to make sure I'm getting all my nutrients in. So if you're interested in that, I will link that on the screen. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.